We have a lot of updates on the crazy world of NXT, where Triple H is rapidly losing control of a roster that is about to be butchered even more than it already had been. After a lot of people were released, Bruce Pritchard is still actively deciding on who is going to be pulled away from NXT to feed the main roster, though he does have the vast majority of names tagged and ready. Adam Cole already apparently has a place earmarked for Raw after SummerSlam. What I've learned over the last few days is that there is actually quite a high number of NXT wrestlers that are outright not wanted on the main roster. I have to ask the question whether these particular people are likely to be kept at the company, because the last group of people who were not wanted were people who were released. I'll start with a duo that aren't going anywhere, and that is Johnny Gargano and Candace Larae, otherwise known as Mr. and Mrs. Wrestling. Let's start with a huge congratulations to Mr. and Mrs. Wrestling, as they announced that they were pregnant. For a couple of months now, I've been hearing that The Way would not be coming to the main roster. Even while Austin Theory and Indy Hartwell have made appearances recently in tryout matches, I've held fast on that one because every time I ask, I was told then The Way are not going to the main roster, and I've shared that here repeatedly. Now finally we know why. Good old pregnancy. Candice LeRae will not be wrestling for a long time now, but will still be playing a part in the Index story, essentially similar to what she's already doing. Johnny is not expected to go anywhere, even after the birth at current, so he doesn't have time booked off as of yet. The biggest question coming out of NXT right now is as regards Dexter Loomis. There are some major questions being asked right now about the viability and long-term career prospects of many individuals within NXT, and Dexter Loomis is someone that there is apparently almost zero interest in bringing up to the main roster. There is little to no belief that the character will actually translate as intended and will be able to actually play out the same character on the main roster of Raw and SmackDown. Characters in NXT, as we've discussed at length here, are very different to characters on Raw and SmackDown, and a whole heap of people think that Loomis has reached his limit in developmental. There are also some questions being asked about Tommaso Ciampa, who has openly stated that he doesn't see himself leaving NXT for the main roster. Well, let's just say Vince McMahon isn't happy with the idea that wrestlers in his developmental brand are refusing to leave it for what he wants to be perceived as the big leagues. In his mind, everyone in developmental should be desperate to get to Raw, desperate to get to SmackDown. In his mind, everyone in AEW, New Japan, should be desperate to get to Raw, desperate to get to SmackDown. That is clearly not the case. Ciampa's role in NXT in the entire time he's been there has been heavily celebrated, but a number of people are wondering what the point is of keeping someone in developmental if they're never going to have, developed. One final note on that. We can confidently say now that Mandy Rose was not moved to NXT for any storyline reason. Instead, she was moved for the simple reason that she apparently requires further development. I wouldn't like to be a fly in the wall for that meeting. That at least gives us an answer to that question, however disappointing that answer might be. Eleanor says, I'm so glad Candice is staying on NXT TV. The Index storyline is so entertaining. I completely agree. It's been sort of the most entertaining aspect of NXT for a while now, which is both a good thing, there's a great storyline, and a bad thing, because that storyline is the most entertaining thing. Meanwhile, you've got Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly in the main event scene, and you've got an actual NXT champion there who admittedly keeps losing to Jeff Hardy. Essentially, NXT is just going through a really weird phase right now. Trust in Triple H is very, very low. Brandon says, I feel Elias and Ciampa are going to be released. Not sure about Elias. They are at the very least attempting to give him a new character right now. I don't think he's particularly secure, but I think he also doesn't earn that much overall money. Ciampa I'm going to have to keep my eye on. B-Skull Nick says, so Mandy was demoted? Apparently yes. Apparently it was simply a case of Mandy Rose being told, let's get you back to developmental and develop you. And just offer you further development because they weren't happy with the talent that she had become. Which sucks because you look at what was happening on SmackDown between her and Sonya. Mandy Rose was about to be a SmackDown Women's Champion. Michael says, is it just me or did Dakota get more of a reaction on main event than Karrion did on Raw? Yes, but to be fair, Dakota Kai hasn't lost to Jeff Hardy. Losing to Jeff Hardy kind of did kill that momentum. Eleanor says, do you think it's safe to assume that Samoa Joe will be beating Karrion Kross at TakeOver 36, considering Kross has already moved to the main roster? Yes, I do. I think ultimately the decision has been made to call up a number of people and give them tryouts, and all of the people who are being called up, we kind of know who they're going to be because they're the guys getting tryouts. Basically, when we get a report from PW Insider saying these are the dark matches, what we're actually being told is, here are spoilers for TakeOver. It sucks, but it is what it is. Brandon says, I bet the NXT locker room is pretty low on morale. Up and down, Adam Cole is a real leader in the NXT locker room. The big question is, of course, whether he's going to stay or not. But from what I can tell, he may have already signed his contract because I'm definitely hearing they're wanting him on Raw and they're wanting him on Raw now. Eleanor says, really sad about Mandy Rose. Whilst her promos weren't amazing, she was improving a lot in the ring and was involved in one of the biggest love storylines of 2020 with Otis. She was. That storyline was hugely compelling and they just haven't been able to do anything with her since. Literally anything. Nothing has happened. And Brandon says, Riker hasn't been seen since the Elias feud. Hopefully that means he'll be released sooner rather than later. It's true that he hasn't been seen. However, I think it's just a case of waiting for the next big heel to open up. I wouldn't be too surprised to see Riker winning the 24/7 championship sooner rather than later. Or in fact, once Damian Priest has beaten Sheamus, taking on Damian Priest for the United States Championship. Because what says United States Champion more than Jackson Riker? And Brandon says, would Cole be a heel or face if he goes to Raw? He would be a heel in WWE's eyes and a face in the eyes of the fans. Basically. No one's booing Adam Cole. At the very least, he essentially beat the system.